class. These are our notes for area of parallelograms is what we're talking about today. These are for informal geometry. So let's just review that a parallelogram has opposite sides parallel. And our symbol for parallel is two lines that look like that look like they're parallel. In order to find the parallelogram area, we do need a base and a height. So we've got a base already, but our height needs to make a right angle with the base. So we need to have some kind of height there in the middle. This would not be a height. It's not going to make a right angle, not necessarily for a parallelogram. It could, but it doesn't have to. So the height and base must form a right angle. They must be perpendicular. So we do want to add that in. All right, so here we've got our base, here we've got our height, and they are perpendicular. That means they form a right angle. And so then our formula is going to be area equals base times height. So rhombus, if you remember rhombus had 4 equal sides. And on a rhombus, our diagonals are perpendicular. So a diagonal is when I go ahead and connect these two vertices. That's kind of messy. Let's make that a better line. So if I connect these two vertices that are across from each other and these other two, those diagonals form a right angle. They are perpendicular. And the way we find our area of a rhombus is we use the length of those diagonals. So we're going to call this diagonal here diagonal 1. And so we'll call it D sub 1. We'll make the 1 like a subscript there. So D1, and then the other one would be the length of this diagonal. And that's going to be diagonal 2 or D2. And so then our area would be 1/2 the length of diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. So you can see that there's like some triangle kind of formula stuff going on here. So I just really want to make clear again that this diagonal 2 is this length right here. That's my diagonal 2. And my diagonal 1 is the vertical one. So that's my diagonal 1. So for the first problem, first and second, they're having us look at area of a parallelogram. So they're telling us a parallelogram. We don't have to worry about opposite sides parallel. We know that it's a parallelogram. We know what formula to use. So let's copy our formula from up above. Area equals base times height. And so our base is this 9 right here. That's the base number. And my height is perpendicular. It's forming a right angle with my base. So my height is 6. So area is going to equal 9 times 6. 9 times 6 is 54. And then remember, we're multiplying meters times meters. And so it should be meters squared. So you should go ahead and try the second one with parallelogram. I'm going to go ahead and work it out. So pause your video and then you could watch me doing that problem. So go ahead and check answers with me on problem 2. You should get 96 yards squared. So our base was 8 and our height was 12. And make sure using the ones that form that right angle, that the ones that are perpendicular to each other. So the last two on this page, we're looking at rhombus. There's 2 on the back, but there's 2 more at the bottom, and they are a rhombus. So a rhombus formula is 1/2 diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. So they're showing me on this one of my diagonals is 11, the other one's 8. It doesn't matter which one's diagonal 1 and which one's diagonal 2. So I'm going to have 1/2 times 11 times 8. So there's different ways I could handle this. One way is to just say, well, I could multiply these guys, and half of 88 is 44, and feet times feet is going to be feet squared. The other way is I could say, well, I can multiply it in any order I want. What if I multiply the 1/2 times the 8 first? So 1/2 times 8 would be a 4, and then I would multiply 4 times 11 and get 44 feet squared. So you do not have to work this problem out 2 ways. Just pick the method that works better for you. A lot of people like to do this one because then I don't have to get a calculator. The numbers are smaller. But if I use this method, if I'm multiplying and then dividing by 2 at the end, I can just kind of always work it out that way, and I don't have to worry about decimals until the last step of my problem if there are some. So just different methods depending on what kind of numbers you have. So the next one was really confusing to my students in class because of the numbers that were kind of labeled all over. So what we did is we took a pink marker, a pink highlighter, and showed, well, this is my D1. And so for D1, I need to go ahead and add to find that whole length. 3 plus 3 is 6. So D1 is going to be 6 inches. And then we took a blue marker here, a light blue marker, and we highlighted D2. And D2 is 2 plus 2, that was 4 inches. And then we went through and used our formula. So this was one that was a little bit tricky for people. So my formula is still 1/2 D1 times D2. And so that's 1/2 times 6 times 4. And again, I could multiply the 1/2 times the 6. I could multiply these guys and then divide by 2. We can multiply in any order we want. So 1/2 of 6 is 3. And then 3 times 4 is 12. So however you multiply that, as long as you're using each number one time when you multiply. I could do 1/2 of 4 is 2, do 2 times 6. I could multiply here, then divide by 2, but we should get 12. Inches times inches, because we're multiplying inches here, times more inches, is going to be inches squared, because we're multiplying inches by itself. So whatever our units are here, we're going to get units squared when we're looking at area. So on the back, we're using our formulas. Uh-oh, I lost my back page. Let's see if I can find it. Here they are. So on the back, we're using our units here. And so like on this one, it says my area is 72 inches squared, but my base is only 12 inches. So now if you think about how I have my inches squared, I have my base is inches, I'm going to have to find my height. So they're giving us different information. So area equals base times height. And this number here is my area, and this number here is my base. So I'm going to have to use algebra and solve. So instead of A, I'm going to substitute 72. Instead of B, I'm going to use 12, and then it's times H. And so the way I would solve that is to divide by 12 on both sides. 72 divided by 12 is 6. And so my height is going to be 6 inches. And that's because if I think about this, I have inches squared and I'm dividing by inches. So inches squared divided by inches is going to leave just one factor of inches left over. And then we'll look at our last one, area equals base times height. So they give me an area number again. Area is going to be 28. And they give me my base again is 7. It's kind of tilted on its side, but I can see there's a kind of a faint H in there to show me I'm still solving for H. And so divide both sides by 7. 28 divided by 7 is 4, and so 4 is H, and it's going to be 4 centimeters. So if I'm looking at a base or height, it's not squared. Area is squared, and the base and the height would just be that, that unit, that centimeters. So if you have questions, make sure you're asking them in class, and good luck on your math homework.